Okay, so you got your psychology degree or you're just about to. Now what do you do? Well, there are a number of options for any psychology graduate, but often it can be a little bit challenging, a little bit confusing to know what to do with your psychology degree. Well, in this week's episode of GetPsyched, we're going to take you through the mess, take you through the challenges, and get to grips a little bit more with what you might want to do with your psychology degree. What's up guys, welcome to another week's episode of GetPsyched, and like I said, this week we're going to be taking a look at what you can do with your psychology degree. Now, to give you a bit of a background to this topic, it's a struggle that I know all too well. Initially, when I was going through my first undergraduate degree, I was doing social sciences, which is like history and politics and sociology and those kind of things. I was finding it really difficult, really challenging to know what I was going to do with that undergraduate degree. I managed to get a couple of psychology modules in that social sciences degree, and as a result that led me on to doing another undergraduate degree, or a graduate diploma degree anyway, in psychology. Now in that journey and on to doing a master's and a doctorate and other degrees and other qualifications, I've learned a little bit about what it takes, what kind of mentality and the options that are available for any psychology graduate out there. I know how difficult it can be at times to get some clarity with what exactly you want to do with that psychology undergraduate degree and where you might want to go with psychology. So let's take a look at some of the information that you might need to know and potentially some of the options that might be available to you with your psychology degree. Now, the first thing that we need to know is that classically speaking, statistically speaking, there is a very low percentage of psychology undergraduates that actually go into further careers in psychology. Now, you might of course ask the question why that is. Well, there are of course many reasons. In order to actually become a psychologist after your psychology undergraduate degree, remember, just because you have an undergraduate degree in psychology doesn't make you a psychologist. You have to progress and get further qualifications into master's and doctorate level in order to start looking at careers in psychology. I think there's also something to be said amongst society and even amongst psychology students and students in general that struggle to fully understand what psychology really is all about. How do you create a career in psychology and what does that look like? I think those challenges and those lack of understandings around psychology about what psychology actually is results in low percentages of psychology graduates actually going into careers in psychology. However, if you're not very keen on going into a career in psychology with your psychology degree, there still are a number of options available. A psychology undergraduate degree can be a great degree if you're looking to go into teaching, for example. Now, this is actually the route that my own mother took. She did a psychology undergraduate degree and spent 30 odd years in teaching. She went on to become a maths teacher and on to be a deputy head. So there are routes available that don't necessarily directly involve psychology that you can use that degree for. You can also go into human resources work. It's common that human resources or people looking to hire individuals in human resources look for psychology degrees. This has a lot to do with the fact that you'll be interacting with people and interacting with workforces, and it's deemed that psychology degrees and a psychology understanding is really beneficial in that occupation. Other professions include healthcare workers, advocacy workers, and even the police. So there are a number of options available if you don't want to progress into psychology that you can use that psychology undergraduate degree for. But what if you do really want to develop your career in psychology? What do you do next after you've got your undergraduate degree? Well, first you need to think about what type of psychology you actually want to do. That could be counselling, clinical, health, occupational, sports and exercise. There's so many different types of psychology as a profession, and you need to think a little bit about what exactly it is that you want to do. What is it that's in you that connects you to a certain form of psychology? What kind of qualities do you have, or what kind of interests do you have that might inform you a little bit about where you want to go in psychology? Now, for me, I chose counselling psychology because I love that one-to-one in-depth work. I love the fact that that's primarily what I do as a counselling psychologist in training. I also like the idea of conducting research. That psychology or that psychologist element of my job is combined with that therapy element. So I get to do that one-to-one therapy work, but I also in the future I'm going to be looking at doing some research as well. I'm also very keen on working privately. Now, that's not to say that in any other form of psychology you can't work privately, but I do think that in counselling psychology anyway, there's a real focus or an opportunity to actually work privately in the future. Now, one thing I would say here, especially if you're in the United Kingdom, to be careful about is the fact that some of these professional doctorates in psychology are paid and even salaried. Of course, I understand the struggle that if you don't go, for example, a clinical psychologist route or a CAP route, that you won't be getting paid, you won't have your course funded, and you will have to fund it yourself and find your own salary elsewhere. I understand that struggle, believe me, I'm kind of going through it myself. But to only focus on the fact that clinical psychology is paid and is salaried as a reason for you going for that psychology doctorate, I don't think it's justification. You've got to be very careful if you're doing that. So say you've kind of come to an understanding, or a bit of an understanding, about the form of psychology that you want to go into. You've got that psychology undergraduate degree and you're thinking about that doctorate or what doctorate you want to do. What is it that you need to do next to help progress your career as much as possible? Well, the first thing that you need to be thinking about is experience. Go out and volunteer and make sure that it's in a caring role. Look at positions like healthcare workers or support workers in particular, or even assistant psychology jobs that are going to help you get experience in caring professions and even in psychology domains that's going to help elevate your CV and your expertise going forward into applying for a psychology doctorate. Now, that assistant psychologist role is one that's quite renowned in the United Kingdom and is a real key factor, especially for those that are looking for a clinical psychology route. You're going to find it very difficult to get on a clinical psychology doctorate if you don't have that assistant psychology experience. Now, I was very fortunate in the fact that I actually did work as an assistant psychologist, even though I wasn't looking at clinical psychology at the time. But the experience that I gained in that role, working directly with other clinical psychologists, other assistant psychologists and counsellors and therapists, was invaluable. So that's a real gold star. If you can manage to get that experience, that's really going to set you up well. One of the other things that I always hark on about, I go on about it and GetPsyched a lot, and when I'm speaking at conferences, I always talk about it. I speak a lot about progressing yourself in psychology and a career in psychology and the options that are available to you. One of the key things I go on about is networking. You have to be putting value into networking. You have to be reaching out into other psychologists, psychology therapy centres, universities, whatever that means, in order to build a bit of a network around you so that you can gain expertise, you can gain experience. Now, when I worked as an assistant psychologist, I worked alongside another assistant psychologist who was hired 2 months prior to me, and she got the job because a year prior to her getting the job, she called up the therapy centre where we worked, the psychology service where we worked, and offered to volunteer 1 day a week. Now, they didn't even bat an eyelid, they said yes, absolutely. So she came on, volunteered 1 day a week, and when that assistant psychology position came up, she was able to apply for it, and she of course got the position. Now, that's just a little bit of an example about the keys into networking, adding value to organisations where you can, not being scared to reach out and contact these individuals, leveraging your time in particular. If you're a student, that's pretty much all you're going to have at the moment, but believe me, therapy centres and psychologists need your time, they want your time. If you're able to utilise that, you're able to gain leverage and gain experience, and shows how much networking can really be valuable. One of the big pitfalls for people that are getting psychology degrees and coming out with undergraduate degrees is that often, and I've seen it when I've taught undergraduates, is that they think things are just going to fall in place. They think that a psychology career is linear, and it's really not linear. It's not like a medical degree or a law degree, not even that those things are necessarily all that linear. But psychology can be really abstract. You've got to try and it's subjective. You've got to try and make it fit to your life, what it is that you want. You really have to do your groundwork, do your homework, know what it is that you want and how you're going to get it. The other thing that's really important to think about after you've got your psychology undergraduate degree is to actually think about research roles. Now, one of the things that happens is sometimes people count these off. They go into psychology to get their degree and they want to do practical work. Of course, I've been there, I get it. But research roles are so important, and if you're going to become a psychologist, you need to be thinking about research in the future. You need to be thinking about that research element of what you do. So it's really important to try and gain some research experience. Don't count this role out. It can be a really great way into academia. If you're going into psychology and you think, working at a university could be an option, becoming an academic could be an option, starting off in a research assistant role could be great. Universities are always looking for willing researchers, and I actually got a research assistant position a couple of years ago when I first started my doctorate, and fundamentally I got it because I saw a job that was up that was for a research fellow. It was for a position much higher than my pay grade, much higher than I was qualified for, but I contacted the individual who was hiring, offered them my time, did that leverage thing I talked about offering my time. They snapped it up. They were like, yep, you can come in for a couple of days a week. I got paid, and it actually came into a full-time job during the summer. And as I studied, I was actually studying at the university and working as a research assistant at the university as well in combination. So it worked really well. Again, it shows you the value of those research roles, and it also shows you the value of networking combined. Okay, so to finish up, there's some key points I want you to consider if you're just about to get your psychology degree or you've just got it and you're not sure what you need to do. The first thing to note is that it's okay to not go into psychology right after you've got your psychology undergraduate degree. It's still a brilliant and wide-ranging degree, and if you're looking at things like working in HR or teaching or the police, a psychology degree can set you up really well. The other thing I'd say is don't be scared of going into a profession in psychology. Yes, of course, it might cost a little bit extra. Yes, of course, it'll be another few years before you're fully qualified. But in today's day and age, we need psychologists more than we've ever needed them, and I'm a great believer in that. And as a result, the opportunities for psychologists today are bigger than I think they have ever been. Again, I'm very passionate about that. I believe that a great deal. So if you're willing to invest in a career in psychology, I really believe it's going to pay off for you. Another thing to think about is think about the type of psychology that you want to go into. What are some of the reasons as to why you want to go into that realm of psychology? Try not to be swayed too much by funded courses and salaried courses where you can. And think a little bit about why you might not choose another form of psychology. Why is it that that form of psychology you want to do is specific and catered to you? And also develop your experiences. Think about your CV, think about caring roles, think about assistant psychology positions, think about that research role as well, and also really invest in networking. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching this week's episode of GetPsyched. This week we've been taking a look at what you can do with your undergraduate psychology degree if you've just qualified or you're about to graduate. Let me know what you think of today's video, guys. You can comment on the video, you can comment on social media, you can direct message me as well. I get back to people often on that. Let me know what you think about the videos. If you've been enjoying GetPsyched, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. You can hit that little bell next to the subscribe button and you'll get weekly reminders every time I upload. Thanks again for watching, guys, and hopefully catch you next week.